Just ahead on American Black Journal, remembering former Congressman John Conyers. Detroit NAACP President Rev. Wendell Anthony is here to talk about Conyers' life and his legacy. Plus, a mentoring program that helps young people live the life they've always imagined. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Ally, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. The nation is saying goodbye this week to the Dean. Former U.S. Representative John Conyers Jr. passed away last weekend at the age of 90. He made history as the longest-serving African-American member of Congress, representing Michigan for 53 years before he resigned in 2017. Conyers was a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus and a leader in the fight for civil rights and a host of other really important social issues. Joining me now to look back at Conyers' life is Reverend Wendell Anthony, president of the Detroit branch of the NAACP. Thanks, as always, for being here.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for doing a tribute to someone who really deserves it and is meritorious for it. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I know that for you, this is quite personal.
Yeah.
And when I think about people around Detroit who sort of inherit the mantle of John Conyers, inherit that voice that he was so great at affecting, not just locally but nationally. I mean, I think you are one of the first people who comes to mind, but it's also a personal relationship with you, right?
It is, and that's a big one. First of all, my condolences are expressed to the family and all the friends and people that loved him. John and I had a very close relationship. He used to come to Fellowship Chapel. We would have breakfast every morning in between services. He didn't always come to church, but he did come to breakfast. We had breakfast every Sunday morning, and we would talk about all the things on the Hill, talk about the presidential politics, bills he was working on, who was roadblocks, federal judge. My only regret, Stephen, is that I did not video those conversations because for history, they would have been jewels. John was a jewel. John was an icon. 53 years, the longest serving African American in the history of the U.S. Congress. He was the dean. He was the go-to guy in Congress. You could not pass anything, particularly trying to mobilize African American Congress people and others, without John Conyers. First African American to chair the House Judiciary Committee. I remember going to a hearing in the chambers there, and he was chairing the hearing. And when he asked me to speak, I said, first of all, Congressman, thank you for inviting me. As I look around these walls, it seems to lack diversity. I look forward to the day of coming back when your picture, Mr. Chairman, is up there on the wall. Well, today, Stephen, his picture is up on the wall as a chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. And so Detroit has a love relationship with him. So does the nation. When you think of fighting against apartheid in South Africa, John Conyers. When you think of labor rights and human rights, John Conyers. When you think of supporting Martin Luther King when others ran away from the king, John Conyers. When you think of women's rights, Haitian refugees trying to come into this country, and folk in Florida were shooting at them. If you recall, when they were coming over on boats,
That's right.
some people from their backyards were shooting at Haitian refugees, trying to prevent them. John Conyers on so many issues. And so he is worthy of that kind of recognition, and he will never, ever be forgotten.
Yeah, when you think about the work that he did, I always figure that there's kind of two different silos you got to put it in.
Yeah.
There's the work he did in Congress,
Yes.
and 53 years, it's a
Yes.
long time to have been there. He got a lot done. But he was bigger than just being a member of Congress. I mean,
Right.
he was able to talk about things
Right.
in a consistent and persistent way
Right.
that move the needle in ways that no member of Congress that I can think of in the contemporary time has been able to.
And
do.
you're absolutely correct. And people around the world respected him. Many of the African nations, many of the European nations who were struggling with their own level of independence, nations in the Caribbean. John Conyers was the man. He would often lead these congressional delegations going to nations to do studies to find out what was going on there. Remember when we did the Rwanda relief effort? You may recall we raised the Detroit branch and the community raised $1 million to take to Rwanda prosthetic materials, food, cargo vans. Our issue was how are we going to get it to Africa? We raised it all here in Detroit. I called John. John said, let me call the president. John called Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton called back and said, well, all right, we're going to provide a plane for them to get it from America to Rwanda. And we did.
Yeah.
Same thing with Project Dream, the Detroit relief effort to aid Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. We took the relief effort there. John Conyers again. I'm simply saying that John was the man. He worked with Aristide in Haiti. He worked with Nelson Mandela in South Africa. I mean, John was different. He was one who talked about ending the embargo against Cuba years before Barack Obama did that.
Yeah.
And so he caught a lot of hell for what he had done and for what the positions that he championed. His mantra was always jobs, justice, and peace. Those three handles magnify who he was, and that's what he dealt with. He was connected to Martin Luther King because of Rosa Parks.
Right.
Rosa Parks got him engaged in that struggle. She talked to Martin Luther King about this congressperson, John Conyers. They got connected. He was the only congressperson, only politician that Martin Luther King ever endorsed. He walked with Dr. King when he was here in Detroit. And so I'm simply saying, you cannot overlook that. And the thing I liked about John is that when the door is closed, the curtains are drawn, and the room is closed, John would stand strong. If John was for you, you didn't have to worry about it.
Right.
And he did not mind standing alone. He stood in the gap. He stood against federal judges who were extremists. He stood against Bork. You remember Bork for the Supreme Court? He stood up against Ronald Wilson Reagan. He stood against Bush. I mean, he checked Clinton when he was wrong. And Clinton would not have survived an impeachment had it not been for John standing in the gap. I'm just sorry we don't have him now standing against this tyrant that we have in the White House right now. And I called him that because that's what he is.
Yeah.
And I'm simply saying the likes of John Conyers, we missed that, and hopefully God will send us another one.
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, you're right that the Trump impeachment hearings will seem a little emptier without, he's not been there in Congress, but just that voice and that idea of what he said. But the other issue that I think is really about to move in a way that we never expected is reparations.
Yes.
And that was
absolutely
that was his idea in Congress alone, right?
Just like he brought the King bill back for 15 years, 4 days after Dr. King had been assassinated. People said it would never happen. Now it's law. Now we celebrate Dr. King. Thanks to John Conyers, he introduced H.R. 40.
Right.
And he brought it to the floor year after year. And H.R. 40 simply is a commission to do the studying for reparations, the case for reparations for African Americans. Does that mean that we're going to receive a benefit, even though we should, like many other people? But it simply says that there should be a study.
We should have that conversation.
Yes, we should have the dialogue. And I'm glad now that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has taken up that mantle. But thank God for John Conyers. We can see ahead because we're able to stand on his shoulders today. Yeah. And he is worth the remembrance, is worth the recognition that's going to be portrayed here in Detroit. The body will lie in state Saturday and Sunday, the Museum of African American History. And then on Monday, the funeral will occur at the Greater Grace Church. And so I'm sure it will be, I know that a number of congressional Black Caucus members are coming in, sure, politicians from across the country, entertainers and celebrities, because John was a jazz man.
Yeah, right.
He loved jazz,
thing.
and he introduced many bills and tried to raise money for jazz artists. When you went into his office in D.C., he would have his albums there. You could go and find sanctuary there. He'd have his little jazz, and sometimes musicians would be up in there. And so John was smooth, and he was not ostentatious. He didn't have to be out front.
Right.
He didn't mind just getting it done, and that's what we miss, and that's what we need. So we look forward to his legacy, and we look forward to the life that he led, and hopefully others will pick up the mantle and continue his
work. Well, I mean,
work.
you see it already. I mean,
yes.
Elijah Cummings, who also passed recently, I
yes.
think owes a lot of the things that he was able to do to John Conyers.
And people don't remember, Stephen, that were it not for the likes of a John Conyers, there would not be an Elijah Cummings.
That's
and I'm sure Elijah Cummings would tell you that. John was one of the original founders of the Congressional Black Caucus. He paved the way. He chaired the committee that Elijah Cummings chaired. And so I'm simply saying, unless we forget, and that's why all these other folk who are now coming behind him need to stand up and remember him. Don't be afraid to call his name. Don't be afraid to stand up and say, yeah, he did a good job. John Conyers set a standard. Claim it because he did it. And if you don't claim it, you're going to lose it. And I don't want to lose it. I want to retain it and own it. And I want to own the spirit. He may have been born poor, but he died rich. The legacy, the service,
well,
the giving.
It's always great to have you here, and I'm really sorry for your personal loss, which I know is
Don't tell me we're out of time, Stephen.
We are. We always run out of time.
Why you always run out of time when I come on your show, man?
We're going to give the whole show over to you sometime, right? It's always great to have you here.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, coming up, a program that's showing young people how to change their lives. But first, here is a 2000 American Black Journal interview with John Conyers about the civil rights struggle for African Americans.
The struggle that ensued from 1953 forward was seen as a black struggle. Moving forward in time to where we are today, many of the gains that have been made and now are created for other groups like women, gays, imprisoned Americans, and others, certainly not limited to those groups, but many others, the disabled included, would seem to have the net effect, some would argue, of diluting the black struggle. Is the human rights struggle in some way a larger frame of reference that will in effect dilute what has been typically seen as the black struggle?
Yes, and there's no question about that. But the irony of it all is that we find that African Americans are predominant in most of the, and many, if not most, of all of these things that we're developing. Take, for example, the increased incarceration of women. Well, that's going up, but the increased incarceration of African American women is going up higher than the overall increase. When we study about education, we find that without affirmative action programs, they nosedive. But we also find that it also may have some harmful effect on others as well that can be cut out. So what we're saying is that if it's right, it's got to be right, and that we don't need to label as much as we need the progress. And I think that's an important direction. We take the battle in South Carolina over whether we should have the flag that lost standing on the state capitol with the flag that won. We find now that many people realize that this is not just offensive to African Americans. There was a surprising percentage and a huge turnout of non-African American, non-people of color who were there protesting that this flag should come down for reasons that go beyond whether you're black and personally offended by the Confederacy that would have kept us enslaved.
My next guest is a motivational speaker who started the I.M.A.G.I.N.E mentoring program for at-risk young women in the Detroit area. Her goal is to help them learn life skills and improve their self-esteem.
You are powerful. Your presence is what matters. You are what matters. You are here for a reason. You are a gift on this earth for a reason. There is a reason why you are here. You have a purpose on your life. There is something that you are here for, and you have to accomplish it. Do not allow anybody to take you, wrap you up, put you in a box, and put you on a shelf.
Today, the I.M.A.G.I.N.E mentoring program also serves young men. Joining me now is the founder, LaTanya Garth. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thanks for having me.
I love that video.
Thank
I love
you.
the music and all the stuff that you're saying. Talk about where you came up with this idea.
You know what? It came from adversity.
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying that adversity introduces a man to himself. And through trials and tribulations, I was able to birth the mentoring program to help people to not go down the wrong path. And so the goal of I.M.A.G.I.N.E is to really help young women and now young men focus on self-esteem, building better relationships, and also learning how to become a great citizen where you're able to get a job and sustain it. So if it's teaching them the importance of education, teaching them about their self-esteem and that they matter and that they're beautiful, all of those things matter. And so I believe once a young person, or anyone, understands that they matter and that they're fearfully and wonderfully made, they can do all things.
Yeah. Talk a little more about the adversity that you're referencing there. What was it that brought you to the idea that people, and especially young people, need this?
Yeah. Just, you know, in life, being young, being manipulated, getting involved in things that you're not knowledgeable of. Always talk about how I will not let my ignorance, arrogance, or fear get in the way of the life I know I can have. So I've had my times where I've been ignorant. I've had my moments where I've been arrogant. And of course, all of us, we're human, so we all have that thing that we're scared of. It could be an elevator, it could be a person, it could be a past experience or a bad relationship that we can't get over. So just knowing that you can get through those things, and knowing that when you go through adversity, there's a rainbow at the end of the storm. But also tell people that, you know, when you go through things, do not allow the issues that you go through to be a crutch for you not to succeed. So many people stop when they get involved in bad things, or they get in trouble, or they may have a bad experience. They feel like, you know what, I'm gonna stop and put my life on hold. I'm not gonna do anything. It's like, no. You went through that so that you could get through it, and you can help someone else along the way. And so that's where I.M.A.G.I.N.E came from.
So we talk a lot about the negative messages and influences that young people have, and especially African American young people get from the outside world about who they are, who they can't be.
Yeah.
But it also seems that one of the things you're countering is some of the negative influences and messages we get from people much closer to us, from family, from friends, from the communities that we live in.
Yep.
We don't always do a great job of lifting young people up.
Yep, and that's very true. And that's why I always tell them I will not be a product of my environment, but my environment will be a product of me. So whatever you're thinking in your mind is an environment. Whatever you're dealing with in the household, that's an environment that you don't have to be a product of, because you can change your mindset although that may be surrounding you, that chaos, you can still have peace in your mind. And so just teaching them that, you know, and just thinking about what it is that you want to really do with your life. You know, you do not have to live the life that you've been acclimated to. You don't have to live the life that you see mom living or dad living, or you don't have to be take your life and feel like it's not going to go anywhere because your father wasn't there, you know, or because your mother you don't have the best relationship. And it's like, no, you take that and you make it work for your good. But many people say, well, how do I do that? And that's when I say, come to I.M.A.G.I.N.E.
Yeah. So talk about some of the things that happened there. We saw in the video you with a bunch of girls who were absolutely rapt at everything you were saying, right? And that's always a sign to me when you see girls that age or boys that age actually really paying attention to somebody. They've really got them.
Yeah.
How do you get to that space with them?
You know, it's funny because even if I'm speaking, you can go in certain places and hear a pin drop. It's like, wow, you know, and I believe really it's a gift from God, because I could walk into a room and feel the energy in the room, and that'll be the session. So it's not necessarily structured or anything. I could have a young lady come in with her mom, and both of them are in tears about something that may have happened to mom, and daughter had to witness it. And so that's the session. You know, how do we focus on forgiveness? We talk about leadership. We talk about self-esteem, loving yourself, and knowing that you matter, making yourself a priority, you know, all of those different things. And even when I'm talking to the young ladies, I let them know, I'm like, look, we can wear a lot of hats, and men can too. And I'm even learning with the mentoring with young men, they need it just as bad as the girls, if not more. And I mean, our men is our leaders. These are our kings, and they have to be trained and they have to be raised, and they don't have that in the household. So they don't have the example in front of them. And so for me, it's like, I'm a woman. I can only give you so much. And so I have young men that I work with that can actually help me coach these young men as well. Because again, I'm one person, and they say it takes a village. No, it takes a nation to help these young people stretch their imagination. So it's not just me that's going to have to do it. It's going to have to be a whole team of people that have a heart for the youth, that love them and really want to pour into them. Yeah. This is the generation that has to take care of us when we get older. So it's our gift to use to work and help these youth understand, like, look, we're going to need you later. You know, if it's chaotic now, what happens if there's no guidance?
Right. What are some of the things you see in the growth, I guess, or progress of the kids who are participating?
I mean, it's amazing. I had a young lady who came into one of my sessions. So let me just say this. We do I.M.A.G.I.N.E Day. It was just a thing that came to my head that to do I.M.A.G.I.N.E Day once a month. And so we run sessions back to back. We serve ages 4 to 10 for the princesses. We do I.M.A.G.I.N.E little ladies, ages 11 to 13. And then we do I.M.A.G.I.N.E ladies, ages 14 to 18. So we're running sessions back to back. And so one lady walked in, and her daughter just was very quiet, but she had been through so much. And that's the thing, like, our trials and tribulations will shut us down, and it will bury our treasures and bury our purpose. And she was quiet. She's not talking because she had some trauma. And we only had her for an hour that session. And I mean, her mom came and got her. She like, what did you do? Because she can't stop talking. And I'm like, well, you know, I can't tell you. So we worked with her. Yeah. She came to I.M.A.G.I.N.E. And so really just pouring into them. You know, sometimes the same stuff I could say to them, mom had already told them, or dad had already told them.
But it's different coming from somebody else.
It is, because they see them all day long. It's like, I'm not going to listen. Even with my daughter, she's 5, but I'm going to make sure she has a mentor. If I have to coach the mentor to tell my daughter
how to deal with it, right?
How to do it, I'll do that, because I want to make sure she's around the right people that's pouring the right information into her. And that's what we do for I.M.A.G.I.N.E. We are very careful with these young ladies, with these young men, and working with them and training them and helping them, because I mean, you can get information from anywhere, but we're going to give you the right information that's going to take your life in the direction that you should go.
Yeah. How can people get involved?
They can just reach me.
Yeah.
So I have a website, I.M.A.G.I.N.E Mentoring, www.I.M.A.G.I.N.E.mentoring.com. We're also on social media, so you can search I.M.A.G.I.N.E on Google, and a bunch of stuff will come up. Again, we do our I.M.A.G.I.N.E Day the third Saturday of every month, so you can come to us. I have a space where we work with the young people, so we're there. And you know, people talk about the lack of mentorship and the lack of mentoring programs. We are here. It's
Yeah.
like, where
But
are
you have to go and engage.
You have to engage. You got to want it. And so even when I tell my students, I'm like, you got to want this.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that I'm going to be
gotta
able to
be
give it to
there.
you if you come and get it.
Okay, well, congratulations on the work, and
Thank you.
thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And finally today, we want to send our condolences to the family and friends of Detroit-born actor and comedian John Witherspoon. He passed away suddenly at the age of 77. Witherspoon was perhaps best known for his role as Ice Cube's father in the Friday movies. He also had close family ties to Detroit Public Television. His late brother, Cato, was a longtime director of this show, Detroit Black Journal. Witherspoon leaves behind a wife and 2 sons. That's our program for today. Go to AmericanBlackJournal.org for more information on our guests and to check out past episodes. Plus, you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
Also brought to you by Ally, Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you. Thank you.